Seen reports today that the Presidential Economic Advisory Council has warned President Cyril Ramaphosa not to implement a permanent basic income grant, as it could damage economic growth and job creation. Since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, there have been mounting calls from civil society groups on Ramaphosa and Treasury to implement a basic income grant to support adults between 18 and 59 with no jobs or any other form of income. Let's talk about these reports of the latest advice given to the President. We're joined tonight by Social Development Department Expert Panel Chair and Wits University Professor Alex van den Heever. And we're speaking to you tonight, Prof, because you were part of a panel that reached a very different conclusion that said that the basic income grant at a permanent level is in fact quite necessary. Do the risks really outweigh the benefits?
So the risks of a very substantial grant being implemented overnight would raise concerns. But essentially what is being recommended by the panel was that we continue with the COVID social relief of distress grant, and that when that is institutionalized properly, that forms a platform for continuous expansion. So in essence, our report, was stressing that we do need this form of income support as a permanent part of our social protection regime.
So,
and it is stable.
This advisory council report apparently says to the President that the report that was given to the Social Development Department, in fact, had made some errors in its consideration around what can be achieved through a basic income grant and the risks to the economy. How do you respond to that?
Well, I've actually seen the leaked report and read it in full, and it's really quite opaque and really makes fairly bold statements. So they would really have to state very specifically what they think is flawed. We published a 275-page report. All of the methodology, all the methodological aspects are in the public domain for any economist in South Africa to look at. Unlike the comments on the views expressed by the Economic Advisory Council, I don't really know what underpins their assumptions and their rationale for their comments. They largely express those views and opinions. They're not actually substantiated by proper evaluation and analysis.
Just on the issue that the basic income grant would be best implemented gradually, given the urgency of the hour with South Africa's unemployment crisis, I mean, over 12 million people, we understand, are living below the income poverty, the food poverty line in this country. How gradual would gradual have to be ultimately to meet the urgency of the situation?
Well, we believe that the starting point, it is absolutely urgent, and there is actually no other policy solution to income poverty in South Africa. The unemployment levels are systemic, so that unemployment is not going to be solved for the next 10, 15 years. So we've got to basically make sure that we are supporting people without any other source of income. We will have to start at a level that we can afford and that we can understand the associated risks. Our view from our panel was that the starting point with the COVID social relief of distress grant was a sufficiently safe starting point, and thereafter a gradual increment could be looked at, taking into account proper appraisals for every incremental advancement. And I think that those assessments of incremental advancements need to be done, and we recommend this in the public domain, in public engagement and deliberation, not behind the scenes and whispering in president's ears, but in a proper evaluation that anybody can critique and evaluate. That is part of our democratic process, and essentially we require that that stuff that is done in the interests of the public are deliberated on fully in the public domain.
But how much time is there for such deliberations when you consider the fact that the call right now, from what we're reading today, is that the President should not make a pronouncement or at least announce an introduction of a basic income grant when he delivers the State of the Nation address in a matter of days? Also in February, the Finance Minister will deliver the national budget. We don't have a great deal of time.
Well, that's why we produced the report. I mean, in essence, our recommendation was that we do have to continue with at least the COVID SRD grant. We can't withdraw it again. It has to continue. So the question really is, what is being asked for by this Economic Advisory Council? Are they really suggesting that we pull this grant from 10 million people in April, when it really is the only safety net in place? But in essence, somebody is not doing their job in government if they haven't actually deliberated on the issues that we made public on the 13th of December last year. Plus, we had distributed the report and a lot of its analysis prior to that within government quite extensively. So if nobody's actually done the numbers, nobody's actually looked at that, or they've only been obstructed within government, instead of properly considering these proposals rather than defaulting to what are in essence potentially sort of ideological positions where people say we will not provide income support to people who have no incomes because we think it will stop them from seeking jobs. We believe, I mean, that to me is what it looks is the impetus behind this report, is that people don't want any form of income support at any level, and will always make an argument that there's some kind of fiscal crisis or fiscal obstacle to moving forward. We're basically saying we have to do this, and we have to make it happen, and we have to consider where the resources are, and we have to start from a point of minimum risk. And I think that that is essentially our position. If somebody's position is no income support is ever appropriate, then they must make that position in public, and let's deliberate on it.
Can it be done without massive increases in tax? Because that's what we're reading would be one of the warnings against doing this, that without significant tax increases, it wouldn't be possible to fund this.
Yeah, so that is often the argument made. When you do scrutinize the budget, there are significant areas for where lower priority programs are essentially funded. But I'll give you an example. We have extensive tax expenditure subsidies that operate currently. So without even tax increases, we currently spend round about 150 billion rand on tax subsidies for retirement provision, private retirement provision, effectively targeted at the top 5% of income earners in South Africa. The first thing I'd ask around that is, have we ever seen a macroeconomic evaluation of that? Have we ever seen an appraisal? But you see, when it comes to distributive programs that target high-income people in South Africa, there are rarely any appraisals done. But when it's about targeting poor people in South Africa and essentially directing income and resources toward their sustainability and stability, then the bar is set very high. Now, I want to see appraisals for that 150 billion rand. We have tax subsidies that are given to people for earnings-related employment, basically subsidies given to employers to employ people. Around about 5 billion rand a year given to that. Has there ever been a public evaluation of that program? And is that, no, there isn't one. We give over 10 billion rand a year to people who are repatriating foreign capital to South Africa. And what is that really spent on? Does that really deliver value to South Africa? Now, those aren't evaluated. So the issue is this is evaluated closely, but hundreds of billions of rands of other forms of subsidy that are given in South Africa are not.
I wonder then, Prof,
there is scope.
If that does not speak to the very idea that some have been saying that economics in its nature is to a great extent anti-poor.
I think that you could say that there are some economists and their training that become inherently anti-poor. The problem, I think, that exists within South Africa, and I'm an economist, but I specialize in the area of social security, but very few of the economists on the Economic Advisory Council have any background in social protection, social security. They don't understand these systems. They also don't understand the economic transmission mechanisms as to how that actually boosts and supports economic development and growth. Social security systems are fundamentally important to economic development and growth. But to the very conventional economist, if their training has never gone beyond those, macroeconomic evaluation and basic economic analysis and understanding, they don't ever consider this. They don't ever look at these aspects.
Professor Alex van den Heever, good to speak to you from Wits University. Grateful for your time.